how can I make healthy changes if I know what to do, but I just don't do it? What gets in our way? I could stand up here and talk about what to do. We could talk about what are healthy nutrition choices? What is the root cause for anxiety? What are ways to get better sleep? Let's talk about sleep hygiene. The moment I knew something had to change, I walked into an audition. My chest felt tight. My heart felt like it was racing. Finally had gotten in front of this casting director I really wanted to get in front of, and I couldn't breathe well, and I sang horribly, and I bombed. And I walked out of that audition, and I got on the subway, and I cried my way home. And I got home, pulled myself together, and realized I had to figure it out. I had to do something. Someone seemed to be steering the ship, and it really didn't feel like it was me. It wasn't until years later that I started to have and understand the language as I was going through my own education to become a therapist and a nutritionist, that I really started to start to think about what it was that I'd done at the time to negotiate all that stuff. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. So there's different categories of parts. We have manager parts, and that we develop typically to protect us and to help us manage our situation. So there's the perfectionist as a manager, people-pleasing, caretaking, overthinking, self-criticism. Sometimes there's that inner critic. That's usually a manager part, trying to help us get it right, even though it just is not always very nice. We have exiled parts. Exiles are the bad stuff. They're usually past trauma or shameful memories. A lot of the bad thoughts that we don't like to feel are exiles. Managers often work to keep the exiles in the background so that we don't feel the distress of them. Sometimes, however, they break through and they begin to surface, and sometimes we need them to, little by little, so we can work through them. Then we have firefighters. Firefighters are the thoughts, the feelings, and the behaviors that exist as a last line of defense. Binge eating, binge drinking, those tend to be firefighters that come in and, shut down the feelings we don't want to feel. And how exhausting, right? How exhausting to have all these parts kind of coming in and taking over. Where was myself? I could feel her in there. And for periods of time in a yoga class or when I was singing or, different times in life, the self was in control. Myself was in the driver's seat. So we need to embrace our parts. Step into curiosity and get to know them. There's no bad parts, and some of them might be really useful at times. They're like children. There's something we can feel committed to supporting and helping to grow. We can come to understand them and gently figure out what they need to evolve so we can grow as a full system within ourselves. We can start to identify what is the stress response of that part. I'd like to invite you into an exercise. Think about a moment recently where you knew yourself was not in the driver's seat, and pull to mind the emotion of that part. It's the sensation. So every emotion has a sensation, a felt place in the body, right? Like sometimes anger, we feel our jaw clench, right? Or we might feel our stomach drop if we're sort of overwhelmed. If we're anxious, might feel our chest tight. So that's the sensation. We might need to help the physiology of our body move through that part so we can get in our thinking brain again. If it's more like worry, anxiety, panic, that kind of thing, this is one. Take one hand under an armpit. There you go. Take the other hand. Yep. And then chin down and squeeze, get small. Because when we're in flight, we want to run away and hide and get little. It also kind of feels like we want to be comforted. So it's like a little hug. And then you can release. There's so many different kind of somatic strategies that can be used, but the idea here is to give you some examples of there's some physiology involved with the parts, meaning our nervous system is involved, right? And those parts might have certain stress response, and we want to address that because then we can get back and go, okay, what's up with this part? Who are they? What are they doing? And we can kind of think about them and have a conversation with that part. And the more we get to know them, the more we'll know oh yeah, that one's here, and we can deal with it. And we can help it get out of the way so that we can get back in ourselves and make health choices or decisions that best serve you today. Know your parts. Remember to get to know them so you can work together to make room for your authentic self to steer the ship and help you make the choices that you want so you can go be in flow and live a full and embodied creative life.